Why life sucks. Welcome to episode number 15 in WhiTeeee podcast. The reason why it's called WhiTeeee is not because it's racist, but just is because the name of the channel. Today, I really want to talk about why life sucks. So I got this idea from actually reading the book, The Diary of a CEO by, I'm pretty sure he's called Kevin, and he has a podcast on the internet or YouTube. It's called The Diary of a CEO. I didn't know that, by the way, when I first started reading the book. So he talks about one particular part when he said, what if there is a woman called Jenny that's have just gone in a fight with her husband, and she's getting out of the house. She's devastated. She's angry. She's mad. She's sleepless. She's sleep deprived. She hadn't had enough sleep, and she's going to work. And while going to work, her car just broken in the road. Her car just broken in the road. And she's pulling up her phone to call someone to come fix her car, and then she saws your video. What will be the idea? And the first idea was like, why life sucks. So today I've made that idea. So I really want to talk about this in three particular pillars or 3 points that I really want to talk about as of why life sucks. I promise that after this video, at least you will have a better understanding. At least you will learn a couple of things that maybe you have never heard of before. And it's not only from me, but I will actually make everything that I say from the books that I read, and I will make sure that I reference the books while actually talking. So I say this is from this book, this is from that book. So point number one, that why life sucks. One is because you're thinking of the past, you're thinking of the future instead of being in the actual moment. And this is from the book, The Power of Now. The Power of Now. So from the title, you should think about now. You should consider and think of is now. And he talks about the author. He talks about, and this is a book obviously recommended by Michael Phillips. I've already did some sort of first impression, 30% reading impression in the last episode. But really what this book talks about, in one of the best segments he says, one of the biggest problems that we have is that we actually don't disassociate timing from us, as if all what we think about is time. So this creates a problem, which is all what we do is think about the past, think about the future as well. So we think about the past, think about the future. And when we think about the past, we think about all the failures, all the things that did go wrong, all the things that shouldn't have happened, right? That we wanted to do or whatever that didn't happen. All of the failures and traumas and loss and everything negative that usually exists in the past. And we think of the future, there's two versions that we could think of, whether it's the positive version where we actually be like the future is going to be better version of reality that it is now in the present, or we think that it's going to be worse, which is some sort of negative emotion, pessimism, etc. And he goes on talking, he explains how both of these realities are absolutely just illusions. And he talks about the past and the future are both illusions. As the past is a now that has passed before, we can't get back, we can't modify, blah blah blah, and in the future is a now that hasn't happened yet. So it's all a series of now, and the only now that is true is the actual now, and all of the other nows are just made to some sort of, just an illusion, as he explains it. So I would say that's number one. And he asked this question that I think was kind of beautiful, and probably it is the point the reason why I started with this at the beginning. He asked this question, and he says, focus on now, while, like right now. Do this as well. I did this as well while reading. I'm doing this right now. Focus on now. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're talking, you can pause this video, whatever. Just focus on it. Focus maybe on your breathing, or you're laying down, or you're riding your car, you're driving your car, listening to this podcast, or maybe working, maybe washing dishes, doesn't matter, right? Do you have a problem now? And the answer is no. And that's why he asked that question. Because if you can think of a now, I mean, like right now, I am talking to the camera, explaining this topic, and I'm walking, and now I am walking, I'm actually taking one step and another step. Do I have a problem now? No. And that's some sort of the revelation that he sort of explains with this book. And this point he talks about how now is really important, right? It's like a lot of the problems we have is just because we think of the past and we think of the future instead of focusing on the now. Now, let's get to the second point. Not wasting any time at all. I'd say the second point, so we said why life sucks. So explaining this point, I would also make such a basic definition that I have learned through actually nursing university. So nursing university, we have learned one of the lessons, which is what is a need. And a need is the discrepancy between what you want and the actual state or the current state or the initial state. So the difference between what's normal or what's real or what's actually existing and what you really want. So the difference between what's optimal and what's actually real. So that is the need. And I would say the same thing from explaining like why life sucks is on the same level, the discrepancy between expectations and what we have, or expectations and what actually happens. Because in a world, let's say in a ideal world, when we don't have any expectations, or we have always the right type of expectations, like I expect 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3 is what ends up happening. I would say in that world, probably life won't suck. Or at least it will suck less, or at least it won't suck as much, right? So from this part, and this obviously as the source is obviously nursing university, is if you have managed your expectations, life will suck less. And as I said, most of the information will be from a book. I'm adding another book in here in this point. The book Who Moved My Cheese is one of the smallest books I have ever read in my life, and probably that you can ever read. It's like 30 pages, and even you can read the stories and acknowledgements and all of it, and you can read it in like an hour max, 4 hours if you were a slow reader. It's insane if you read in 4 hours, but I understand if it's your first time reading, it could take you 4 hours because you really want to sort of think about every topic. But in this book, explains such a simple way of framing life. And I have read this book when my mother passed away. I genuinely have read that book when my mother was passing away, when passed away, and after she passed away. And probably that was the number one period when I reread that book a lot of the times. And the main idea of the book, he talks about the difference between 2 mice and 2 men. People tend to actually hem and how, which means they just complain or they overanalyze, right? So in this book, there's this maze, there's 2 mice, so animals, there's 2 men, right? And they are the same size, and basically every day they wake up, they look for cheese. So this one day, they all found great source of cheese, all types of cheese, Italian cheese, French cheese, whatever, all types of cheese in this specific room. So they started eating. Now what happened with the mice, they haven't changed their habits. Every day they go sleep in their house, they wear their sweatpants, their running shoes, everything, and they go to that place, eat, and come back at night. But men or humans with their complicated mind and the ability to think and analyze, what they have done is to actually get closer. So what they've done, they were actually sleeping in the area, they just removed their running shoes because they don't need them anymore, and they just put them away, and they were just eating all the time, enjoying the cheese. So one day what has happened, cheese has ended up like there's no cheese left. So they ate all cheese, or cheese was removed, whatever, it doesn't matter. So the point is, one day, no cheese. And here is the essence of the book. What has happened is the mice already knew that the cheese was ending, because every time they were scouting the cheese, they were looking, they were actually measuring how much is cheese left, how much are they consuming cheese, right? So they knew cheese is going less and less, and it's gonna end at some point. So what they did is just go to the maze, put their running shoes, same day they started running, they went into the maze running, looking for cheese, looking for new cheese. And their name is Sniff and Scurry, as one of them run and one of them sniffs the cheese. So he's like, I sniff the cheese from this side, you gotta go. And the other guy is just running through all the routes of the mazes. And a lot of people sort of resonate, they really wanna be Scurry, as he's just running through all the different areas of the maze, while Sniff is actually sniffing, but also he's better, way better than humans. Now, what I think I resonate, and I really read this a lot, and I even highlighted it when I had the book, and now I delete the book, as I tend to always delete the book that I before. So I move on, I live in the now, as we said in the first row, I live in the now. So what has happened is, him and How were him and howing. So all what they did, they were like, no, why me, why cheese, what has happened, and no way, and why does that happen, they took my cheese, they whatever bullshit. And one of them was sort of realizing, he said, we actually, there is no cheese, we should just go run in the maze. And the other one said, no, that's not fair, they took our cheese, And they also tried to sort of dig a hole in the wall, they found nothing. And one of them was sort of thinking that genuinely the mice at this point have already found the cheese. So he said, well, what are the chances that they already have found the cheese? And we should actually go into the maze and look. And his name is Him. The other guy is How. But How was howling, and he said, no, shut the fuck up, whatever. One day, Him decided to go run in the maze, put on his running shoes, as he was going weaker, as he wasn't eating, he was starving, whatever. And he was writing in the walls, which is the lessons of the book. And the main lesson, which is he was writing to his friend, hoping he's gonna follow him. And by this time, actually, the mice have already found new cheese and they were eating new cheese. So Him, which is the man, have actually written in the wall. I would say he was written more than one thing, but the more, I would say there's two. Number one is that change is inevitable. Always change is happening, which is the essence of the book. Life is in constant change. If you think anything you have will not change, then you're wrong. And two, I'd say the best point is, when there's no cheese, you have to look in new direction. And this obviously goes for work and job and life. A lot of the times we want something, we don't have it anymore. And the essence of this book or this quote is like, you have to look in new direction. And also there's one point which is probably the most famous, is that he who do not change go extinct. So maybe you'll find yourself in this situation as answering the question why life sucks. You find yourself, you're How. You're the little man who's howling and complaining and saying, they took my cheese, and refusing to actually go and just accept change as something that's inevitable, that will happen. It's the nature of human, it's nature of universe, it's the nature of the world, as change is always constant. You have to adapt to it, you have to change. Most importantly, you have to look for cheese in the maze. You have to look in new direction. That's so beautiful. When there is no cheese, you have to look in new directions. So simple of a rule. Now, I'll get to point number 3. So point number 1, it was the power of now, or the ability to just not think about the past and not think about the future in a good way, according to the book, the power of now. 2, it was the actual ability or the differentiation between expectations and actual reality. And also we have actually given the examples of the book Home of the Mighty is one of the greatest books when it comes to adaptations and change. I'll say the third point that I would really want to talk about, including or talking or in concerns of why life sucks, is a quote by Elon Musk. So it's not a book. Elon Musk, in his latest interviews, he talks about questions, right? So this interviewer, I'm pretty sure he's Indian interviewer. I don't know his name, but all I know is that he's from India, because he was talking about Indian entrepreneurship. So he was talking about entrepreneurs, etc. And the point here, he asked them a question about some collective consciousness that he was talking about, how all humans on earth should have some sort of collective consciousness, which just makes us learn faster, etc., and help us become a better world. I asked him, he said, why it's so important to have this collective consciousness? And he sort of pauses, and Elon Musk, if you don't know Elon Musk, he has some sort of this pauses. A lot of the times in his podcast, he just waits there for 15 minutes. No, not 15 minutes, but 15 seconds or 30 seconds even. Just finding the right answer for the question. And he talks about something that's so fascinating and so interesting to talk about that you wouldn't expect as an answer for that question. And he talks about what's the meaning of life, etc. But nevertheless, the essence that I really want to extract from here is he talks about questioning, and how a lot of the times it's not that we're getting the wrong answers, is that we're not asking the right questions. So he talks about this book that is quite famous that he have read, and he had a lot of impact on him. And when talking about books, if you really want to read more about Elon Musk, you can read it in his biography by Walter Isaak. I've read that maybe a couple of times. I haven't read just the last part. I sort of skimmed through that because it was some sort of unrelatable. No, I'm pretty sure I've read the entire book. But nevertheless, he really talks about one of the most books that he has gotten influenced by, which is Dugas, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And basically in this book, they really want to know what's the meaning of life, or what's the universe. So they make this computer, or this computing power, that takes years and years to actually compute the answer, maybe 15 years or so. So they ended up having the answer, which is 42. And then they explained how 42 is not the meaning of the universe or the galaxy, obviously. But the point is, it's not that the answer is wrong, but it's the question that is wrong. And you should actually think of the questions with the answer, which is the universe. That's some sort of complication, but the point is, a lot of the times, it's not that we don't have the right answers, we don't have the right questions. We're not asking the right questions, right? And a lot of the times, let's say in my podcast, I try to do this as well, is that I sort of rethink on myself. I'm like, how can I make this channel work? And then I ask myself, I say, maybe it's not that how can I make this channel work, but maybe I'm just asking the wrong question, right? It's like, oh, how can I make this channel work? And I'm looking at all the options, make entertainment videos, whatever. Maybe I'm asking the wrong question, not getting the wrong, and I'm like, maybe that's not the answer. I gotta think more, I gotta find a better answer. No, that's not, it's not the wrong answer. It is actually the right answer. But what's this situation is that I'm asking the wrong question, which I think is quite interesting. Everything about Elon Musk, I think, is quite interesting most of the times, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship and some sort of a life philosophy that actually we can learn from in so many different ways. I would say it's extremely important to sort of have this information. I would say I'm gonna wrap up all the books I have read, and as if all the books I have read, which I'm pretty sure now it's, let's say at least 10, being humble, nevertheless, but let's just say I've read all the books, whatever, how many, and they all have to answer this question of why life sucks. I'll say the number one they would say, whether they will say life sucks as a default, as maybe, that's the thing we're talking about. Maybe it's not that the answer we're given is wrong, but maybe the question is right. Maybe it's not like why life sucks, but how to make life suck less, or how to make the sucking of life worthwhile, which is actually an Alex Hormozy's quote. We're talking about books. He's the writer of $100 million Offer, $100 million Leads, and $100 million money models. He talks about, a lot of people talk about passion and how passion is coming from the Greek word, which is to suffer. And he says, a lot of people talk about how passion is doing something where you don't suffer, but actually what I believe is maybe it is to find something worth suffering for, which I think it might be the truth. Life is suffering, or life sucks anyway. It's just like, how can I make life worth sucking, right? How can I make it worth sucking? Which is like, maybe I gotta have a better mission, better beliefs, whatever. I'll say 2, keep learning. I'll say all the lessons that I've given now, I wouldn't have known, I wouldn't have even thought about if I've actually haven't gotten to the point or the opportunity or gotten in the habit of actually getting to read the books. So reading the books again and again, reading different books in different ways, in different times, in different topics, which is something that I didn't do at first. At first I was really picky about the book. I said, well, I just have to read finance and psychology and how to make money. But now what I'm learning is you should actually learn or read more books. That's why I've downloaded about 20 books in the past week or so in January, which is the first month of 2026. The reason behind it is not only having the ability to read, but having the ability to actually read more books in different ways, in different topics, because a lot of the times it's not only true that you have to learn new things, but a lot of the times, even if you learn the same things but in different ways, as every author has a different way of looking at life. Maybe some people are more extreme than in certain topics than others. Maybe some people are better than explaining at certain topics than others. Maybe some people will explain it in a way that's more relatable and suitable and practical and operational for you more than others, even if the others are more right or even advanced, etc., or are, let's say, has a better book, but in some aspects maybe the other books are better. So even if you get the same information in different ways, it will make it stick more than if you don't get the information, or if you just get it in one way, which is what I have learned from reading the books again and again and again. I get to a certain point where it's some sort of plateaus, and I'm just having the same information again and again. It's not having that impact at the beginning when you're just reading the book and you read another book and you read another book. The information gap some sort of get closer or get closes way faster. Now the third point I would say, let's say if all the books that I have read came together to answer this one question, it will be that it will probably be that, well, you just have to expect it, really. Accept it. So a lot of the times, maybe that it's not wrong that life sucks. Maybe it's not wrong that life sucks, etc. But maybe that's just what it is. All right, there's a big mama dog. Let her pass. Right? Oh, amazing. I don't want to get bitten in here. I got the point. All right, she stopped. But nevertheless, let's wrap up. As I promised, I really explained this, and I really used as many references as I can. All of them are obviously authorized and very known books from different authors, well-known authors as well, that are worth reading, worth knowing, worth reading about. And I also looked at the topic from different ways. I hope that I helped you. And also, please subscribe. So this is WhiTeeee Galaxy channel. I've uploaded 320 videos in the past 26 months, 2 years and 4 months. I really make videos all the time, and the goal for this year is to upload 10,000 videos, which is going to be hard, but please help me subscribe. I have 350 subscribers now with 320 videos in the past 3 years, so please subscribe.